Um, right. This is a relatively unscripted video. It has to do with the fact that I have been seeing a lot of YouTube videos regarding electric vehicles and how the current COVID crisis is in some way good for the electric vehicle. Um, hmm. This is a bit of an odd one for me to be seeing. It seems like uh, I, it seems like there's no economic logic. I studied economics, and if I apply basic economics to what's going on around me, it seems obvious that this is not a good event for electric vehicles, and I would like to explain why. So I need to make a form of clarification. I own an electric vehicle. I own a Nissan Leaf. Nothing really great as far as the world of electric vehicles go. And I need to explain the two main choices that people make when they go out to buy an electric vehicle. The two primary choices, decision factors, is the actual vehicle cost on the one hand versus on the other hand the price of fuel. At this stage I want to make a sort of disclaimer, and that is about the Tesla motor cars. Tesla has successfully positioned themselves in the luxury car market. They are on a price level that is equal to the German luxury cars, the BMWs, Mercedes-Benz and Audis of this world. They've also managed to position themselves into a more formidable product category. And what I mean by that is the sheer power and speed of a Tesla versus their luxury car competitor. There's no real comparison. Tesla is far more powerful, it's got far more speed. It also has those amazing features of self-driving and the cameras all around, etc., etc. So the point here is that Tesla has been able to sort of position itself in a specific market category that there will still be a very formidable product going into the future. And I really want to put them aside. It is really all the other EVs, specifically you can call it more affordable characteristics, or the more affordable category of EVs. This is like the Nissan Leafs, the Chevy Bolt, the Hyundai Kona, and the Kia Soul. Particularly the Kona and the Soul are going to be probably the best comparators, because in both car categories you have an electric version and a fuel, gasoline, petrol burning version of the car. Now I want to go through the two characteristics of the deciding factor. As I said, it would be the price of the actual car and then the price of filling or fueling the car. In my specific case scenario, what pushed me into looking at an EV seriously was the fuel cost part. You know, going through to the gas station or petrol station and filling up the car and finding that from week to week, month to month, the price started going up at times that I really didn't need it to go up, so to speak. And then I became very enraged when I saw the sticker on the petrol pumps, on the actual petrol pump itself. There was a little sticker that explained how the pricing of fuel is created. It was a little propaganda sticker by the fuel company, and it was totally wrong. It was a total lie. The oil companies or fuel companies run a bit of a creative accounting program in some countries. They've sort of separated the actual oil company from the actual gasoline or petrol company. So although they've got the same logos and all that, one has sort of part ownership of the other, but the other one is run at almost a loss, so that they've got some sort of method of saying, you see, we don't make much profit on fuel. Whereas if you just turn to the Fortune 500 magazine and you'll see in the top 10 listed companies, there they are, BP, Esso, all the fuel companies are right there. They've got the most amazing profits, etc., etc. And at the end of the day, this is an inelastic product, and we have to pay for fuel whether we like it or not, and these guys can just screw us. So you can just imagine during this COVID time, I'm the one that's finally smiling, but nonetheless. So the thing is that the price of fuel being always going up, I was enraged enough to start looking elsewhere at what alternatives are there in this world, and the EV was the alternative. And the price of the Nissan Leaf, specifically at the time that I bought it in 2014, the Nissan Leaf's price, I was now in a category of car where I was now looking towards a German luxury car, and the Nissan Leaf pricing was right there, with the entry-level German luxury cars, the BMW 1 Series cars or something along those lines. And I have no regret buying a Nissan Leaf. To me, it's a far, far, far better quality car all around, but that's besides the point. The fundamental is that when you look at the capital cost of the vehicle and you look at your current financial situation, you do decide, is it worth my while buying it, because it's actually expensive. And again, coming back to the best example here being the Kia Soul and the Hyundai Kona. You really there do see them side by side, the gasoline internal combustion engine version versus the EV version. And when you're kind of strapped for cash, you're going to end up always going for the cheaper one, so to speak. But then what would be the balancing factor is the price of fuel. So if the price of fuel is always going up, and you're starting to realize that everybody's telling you that on the balance of things, in the long run, it's cheaper to go the EV route, which is true, you might be able to say, okay, I'm going to forego having the cash in hand today, put in my cash, to paying off a loan towards a more expensive car, and then in the future it should all work out for me. That was the logic back in the day. Not necessarily today. Okay, so let's go through this carefully. The current situation in COVID is a current crisis situation. It is what happens post-COVID crisis. And you just got to look at this from an economic point of view, or an economics point of view, and it's actually a very logical point of view. Our economy is going to be weaker post-COVID. There is no question. We might be losing something like 20% of our GDP. So even if you are a relatively affluent person in an affluent type of business line or something along those lines, working for an affluent company, you are going to look around you and realize that everything is slowing down, and that your own job's increases, your potential for salary increases and all that may be under threat. We are most definitely going to be walking into an economy that's got higher inflation, etc. So your deciding factor on buying a vehicle is most likely going to become a lot more conservative. So when you look at the cost of the vehicle, you are going to be a little bit more conservative before just leaping up to, I want to pay for a more expensive vehicle. So that is going to be the majority of people in this world. They are going to become more conservative about the capital cost. As far as the fuel side goes, electricity will still be cheaper, fueling up your car, but there's a perception scenario. So on the one hand, the way I was telling you that I was very frustrated having to pay more and more and more, now it's going the opposite direction. I'm hearing people kind of laughing, saying, they used to pay $50 to fill their tank, and now it's $30 to fill their tank. That perception is a perception of, well, it's actually becoming cheaper and cheaper. So when you balance those two, the sort of thrust towards EVs is decreasing. We must take a few other things into consideration. One is, how long will this carry on? There's arguments about, this will eventually come to an end and price of fuel will come back to its level. That's true, but that won't happen for a long while. The oil price issue really has to do with these massive tanks, the reserve tanks filling up, as these oil container ships keep on coming over. They've been filling up these tanks, and in essence, the current oil price shock is only because these tanks are reaching capacity, and they're literally in a situation where they're saying no more oil. It's not a case of let's decrease the amount of oil or something. It's a case of we don't want any more oil coming in, and this is why we're seeing a price shock going downwards. The thing is that post-COVID, we're going to have two situations going on with regards to the price of oil. On the one hand, those tanks are going to be the first to be used. There's a strategic capacity level that every country tries to stick to and not go below, but we are well above that strategic oil capacity level. So what's going to happen is the various countries in the world are going to start drawing from those tanks first to draw down to their strategic levels. So meaning that they're going to be not only taking oil from what they already have, but also receiving oil from the oil producers, the Saudi Arabias of this world, Nigerias, Russias, etc. So there's going to be a continued oversupply of oil. There's also another factor that we are not taking into consideration, the second, also known as the second black swan factor. This is the tiff, or argument going on between Russia and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has been for the longest while the world's biggest producer of oil, and it's an issue of pride for them. In this grand world, what could they be proud of? And it's that one thing, the fact that they are the world's biggest producer of oil. Well, as it turns out, the United States surpassed Saudi Arabia, and then Russia surpassed Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia fell from first to third, and they don't like that. They particularly don't like losing their position to Russia. So it appears that those two are going to continue locking horns. What is absolutely clear is that Russia cheats on their oil contracts, and that they will generally agree to cut oil, but they generally don't do it in order to capture more clients. This has been a norm. The fundamental is that we're not taking that issue into consideration, that they may continue having this tiff and still not balance the supply versus the demand. I personally don't see this as a threat to me. I personally do like it when the price of oil and fuel goes down, but that's not the point. The point here is the price of oil is going to continue to be low, and as a consequence, the price of fuel is going to continue to be low for a long while coming. Also, now looking at the actual capital side, the cars, the prices of cars, we are definitely going to see a situation where, at least now in the year 2020, there's a lot of cars that are not going to be bought. Motor manufacturers are going to be looking to offload their stock of vehicles. They are most likely going to lower the price. It's again supply and demand. So internal combustion engine cars, ICE cars, their prices are most likely going to come down. So we're going to see most likely a bigger gap between the price of an ICE car and an EV. This is simple supply and demand. People are going to look at their choices. They're going to see that the price of fuel is coming down. They're going to look over to the actual capital cost of the vehicle, and they're going to say, well, it's even cheaper still. So the thrust vector towards getting people to switch over to EVs is definitely going in the opposite direction. Lastly, the perception about countries' laws moving stronger towards promoting EVs. This is a very serious factor. We are definitely going to be watching this in the future. It's obvious under the given circumstances that those laws are going to be under threat. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the various transport authorities to ease up on these laws. So the laws might stay in place, but enacting new laws to force a movement towards EVs, that may well be slowed down for a long while coming. So the long and short of it, of this conversation, is contrary to most other people on YouTube, I can tell you, just applying simple economics, you can see that EVs are definitely going to be under threat. Again, this is excluding Tesla to a large degree, but even Tesla may see it, may have a bit of an impact in general, but nonetheless, EVs in general, the sale of EVs are going to be in threat. Even though a lot of people don't want it to happen, I totally agree. I also don't want it to happen. I would like to see more EVs in this world. Just because you want it doesn't mean you can will it to be the way the world you want it to be. I have to actually look at, straightforward economics. I have to repeat this. My logic has to kick in, and yeah, it's a bit of an unfortunate situation, but I thought you should get a bit of a glimpse of reality. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please share this with other people. I'm trying to get this channel off the ground, but also by sharing with other people, perhaps we can get a bit of honesty out there in this world. Again, I own an EV. I would like to see more EVs being sold. It's definitely, without question, a superior vehicle, but I'm also not blind to the situation that we're in and what's going to come up in the future. Yeah, thank you very much for watching.